Senator Rennick.
My question's in regards to contracts for difference, and in particular I would like to know how much the federal government intends to subsidise these contracts for difference through AEMO.
Senator, if you mind, we'll just pause. We need a bit of a change of personnel for this.
Sure.
Good morning, Senator.
How are you going?
Can I just clarify, so your question is specifically about the capacity investment scheme?
Yeah, so it's the contracts for difference, the long-term energy service agreements. Basically, yeah, ITESA, the innovative contracts. Yeah.
So both the Commonwealth and New South Wales have agreements with AEMO Services Limited for the provision of effectively revenue underwriting support. So the Commonwealth's instrument is the capacity investment scheme. You referred to the LATESAs.
Yep.
That's a New South Wales run scheme that's also administered by AEMO Services. So very happy to answer questions about the
So how much is the federal government underwriting that scheme?
In volume terms, the federal government's committed to underwriting 32 gigawatts worth of renewable and generation and storage
32 gigawatts.
capacity. That's correct.
Right, so the average, so what's the cost of that in dollar terms?
So the cost isn't disclosed in the budget papers for the reason that having disclosed the total volume, disclosing the cost would then give you a sense of what the average price would be per gigawatt, and effectively that would prejudice the competitiveness of the negotiations were we to publish a figure which, well, effectively, as I said, what we need to see is highly competitive auctions with the private sector going through the price discovery process and bidding in at the lowest possible price.
But isn't this taxpayers' money that you're using to underwrite renewables?
So it sits as a contingent liability on the Commonwealth's balance sheet. So if electricity prices were to fall to a level, wholesale electricity prices were to fall to a level below what an individual proponent had put forward through their tender arrangement as the price, the strike price that they are bidding in at in order to receive revenue underwriting support, then there would be an implication for the Commonwealth Government in terms of payments that would need to be made under those contracts. But at the point where the contracts are set, as I said, it's a contingent liability, it's a balance sheet.
Okay, why should the taxpayer have to underwrite the private sector for renewables, given that we're constantly told by the government renewables are cheaper? Why does the federal government, maybe you can answer this, Minister, but why does the federal government have to, taxpayer, have to underwrite privately owned energy providers?
Well, I think I might let Mr Duggan answer on the detail about what the mobilising principles are under the CIS and the way that the incentives are structured to deliver the fastest possible rollout of the lowest cost.
But why would renewables need incentives, given that they're already cheaper?
Well,
I'd call it a subsidy, wouldn't you?
I'm going to take the approach for these estimates, Senator, where you'll ask questions which you're entitled to ask, and I'll answer them, and you won't interrupt me.
Well, this is Senate estimates for senators to ask questions and for ministers to answer them.
There you go again. As I indicated. The principle here is to achieve the lowest cost, the highest possible volume of the lowest cost form of electricity. And I would have to say that the last 2 years of demonstrated improvement in new generation capacity coming into the grid does contrast with the previous government's hands-off-the-wheel approach. We are determined to do what is required to maximise the utilisation of low-cost generation. Mr Duggan can talk to you about the details of how the scheme works and how the contracts for difference provide that incentive.
I understand how it works. I wanted to know the cost. So let's go to that issue. Why do you think that the taxpayer, the Australian taxpayer, shouldn't be made aware of the risk in terms of their dollars as to how much they're going to underwrite this generation capacity?
Well, I think taxpayers are aware
Well, they're not aware because they've just heard then that we're not being told.
Well, as I said, if you want to shout over the top of me, that's fine, but you won't get answers to your questions.
Well, I'm not getting answers now. I just asked the question.
Right, Senator Rennick, ask your questions and then please allow the Minister to answer them. It is up to the Minister how he chooses to answer the question. You can continue to question him if you would like further information.
Thank you, Chair.
4 gigawatts out, 1 gigawatt in. That was the result of a decade of people sitting on their hands in terms of energy policy. This government has, and I think we've traversed some of this detail this morning. I'm not sure whether you were listening or not. Mr Duggan's in a position to be able to go through the detail. A significant amount of new capability coming in. Now that requires government leadership. It requires government action. It is anticipated that the cost that is attached between now and 2050 of achieving the government's targets will largely be met by the private sector. But I'll let Mr Duggan.
Well, no, that's fine. I'll leave it at that.
Authorised G. Rennick People First Chermside.